Uh, he was very much involved in the road shows, so whenever the ward had road shows, he was always there helping with lighting or whatever to help his ward do the road shows and have a good time, and just was so willing to give his time and talents to everybody.
Carnivals or whatever they had, that he had to do the making things happen and building things. And he worked for several years on the road shows, building their scenery and painting their scenes.
He helped build the Ivans Wilson Ward, and it was when the members helped build.
For a while he was not very active in the church when they were first married because it was so hard for him to hear. And so he was inactive for quite a while, but then when he got a better hearing aid, I think he was able to understand and hear what was going on. He was called as a ward clerk first, and he did that for several years. And then he was a counselor in the bishopric and on the High Council. And he used his talents and skills to fill those callings.
Grandpa had not been active in the church. Part of his life, part of his married life. And he turned that around and became so active and had such a love for the gospel. And I think that's a real tribute to him, that he saw the truth of the gospel and wanted to become very, very active, and to have that for his grandchildren, his children and grandchildren, to realize what a good active member of the church he was and what a love he had of Jesus Christ. And so that's what I remember about him, what a good member of the church he was, and how he loved his family. He did love his family. He would have done anything for them, and did.
His fascination with art and printing kind of came together in making posters and things for the ward, using his artistic skills and the alphabets that he could produce just beautifully. So he made a lot of those for the Relief Society and for whatever was going on in the ward. My mother said he was her extra counselor because he did a lot of the work for the Relief Society. All the carnivals or whatever they had, that he had to do the making things happen and building things and taking a picture with the temple in the background. He knew of exactly the spot you could stand and get the whole thing. And so his were not patched up, but they were a real photograph of the temple and the people. Yes, he did those, and he also did, at that time, Missionary Farewells had a program, and he made some beautiful programs for several missionaries.
That was our 49 Plymouth. He bought that new at an auction. There's some kind of an auction. But it was kind of a classic. He took it over to the ward and had the bumper stole off it.
49, they bought a brand new car. And this was the first new car I think they'd ever had. And this was a 49 Plymouth, kind of a cream color. And oh, they were so proud of that. And that was a big year. The war was over and things were getting better, and so he was really pleased with that car. And they had it a long time, and then it was repainted. And the Lovelace family was quite well known, at least in our ward. Everybody knew them, and the things that they could do. And people would come and ask for photographs or printing jobs or whatever it was for him to help them out. I worked in the print shop in the basement quite a bit. We printed napkins. That was our part of it. And he taught me how to set type and how to lock up the forms, and so we could do these things, and I could do them by myself. And then I got a job at Lorraine Press, where he worked downtown, and I worked there in the bindery for when I was starting when I was about 12, and worked there in the summer sometimes. I guess the whole family was involved in there, Billy and Ronnie and even Myrene. And then when I wanted to get a job somewhere else when they didn't have work, because I had worked there, I was able to get on at Bookcraft and Mountain States Bindery and several places I worked in that type of field because of the experiences I had there. So it was a good start for me, earning a little money and saving it.
Myrene Pearl Lovelace. I was born on June 28, 1944. At this time, my mother was not in good health. I was a hard burden for her to bear, and my birth was nearly 3 months premature. When I was born, I weighed 3 pounds 5 ounces. I was a frail, sickly baby, and I stayed in the hospital for 30 days before I was able to finally come home. I was fed almost every 2 hours to increase my weight. It was almost a continuous 24-hour, round-the-clock attention that I required. I was never ready to eat, and I would often doze off during the feeding, and then I couldn't hold anything down. However, after I was a year old, I gained strength and began to thrive. During my younger growing-up years, our neighborhood began to change its character. Some or many of the families with growing children began moving to larger homes. This had the effect of removing the younger girls from the neighborhood that were my age. I had only boys to play with, and these were Dee Allred, Billy Carter, and we played mostly boys' games like marbles, football, and soldiers. I even had a gallon can of marbles that I won from the boys. On the first day of school, my mother took me dutifully to school and left me in the care of the teacher, with much motherly apprehension. As the day wore on, the time finally arrived for me to return home. I came home and announced emphatically, "Well, I'm not going back there again." I graduated from 4 years of seminary, and at my graduation from high school, I was honored as the only student who had gone through all the years of high school without ever being absent or tardy. I received my bachelor's degree from BYU and my master's degree at the University of Texas at Denton. I then drove up to Lincoln, Nebraska and applied for a teaching position, teaching young girls almost my age to become teachers at the University of Nebraska. I soon became an assistant professor. I stayed on there for 10 years and received tenure or permanent staff status. For most of the time, I was assistant chairman of the College of Physical Education for Women. As assistant chairman, I had many demanding responsibilities such as preparing the annual catalog of courses and administrative functions, as well as teaching my classes. This arduous work was very time-consuming. While visiting some friends in Pennsylvania, I put in an application for summer work and also for full-time employment at the IBM plant nearby in New York State. I worked the summer months, and then at the end of the next spring semester at the university, IBM offered me a permanent position. I quit all of my ties of 10 years at Nebraska and moved east to take this employment. We worked on equipment for space missions and electronic equipment for submarines.
My dad was very patient, and if you ever got a sliver in your finger, oh, it was a big deal, and he would get the big light and sit you down and get it out so patiently. Seemed like it was just a major operation, but he always did it right. When I went to high school, and through Mutual, there was father-daughter parties and father-daughter dances, and he always went with me, and that was a big deal. And when I graduated from BYU in '63, and then I was engaged, and we were going to be married that summer in August. I made my wedding dress, and then I made 5 bridesmaid dresses, and spent all summer doing that, but that was fun. And